everybody, and welcome to a massive edition of the Five Star Joshi Show here on the Fight Game Media Podcast Network at the Patreon. Parker Klein here with Scott Edwards. Scott, this is undoubtedly the biggest, it's going to be the longest five-star show we've done in our month of doing this so far. And it's for one reason. It's partially the namesake of the show, the 5-Star Grand Prix for Stardom, World Wondering Stardom, the promotion, obviously the biggest Joshi promotion out there. This is essentially the Joshi G1, as it's become, especially now that Stardom has not only been acquired by Bushiroad, but has sort of exploded in popularity over the last couple of years, despite a worldwide pandemic going on. So that is going to be our top story today. It's what we're going to get into, but we have a ton of stuff going on right now, including the Tokyo Joshi Pro Tokyo Princess Cup. We saw first night of action for that tonight. We're going to have 4 straight nights now of TJPW action. We have big title matches in Stardom. We had that big Marvelous Korakuen show that saw the return of Takumi Iroha. We've got an Ice Ribbon Korakuen show this weekend. Lots of miscellaneous stuff around the Joshi scene as well, but that's a lot of stuff to cover, Scott. We're going to start with the 5 stars. So, Scott, do you want to run down the competitors in the red and blue blocks, and then I will get into sort of the rules and what we can expect to see from this tournament?
Absolutely. Sounds like a deal. So we have the Red Stars block, which features Julia, Momo Watanabe, Mayu Iwatani, Himika, Starlight Kid, Natsupoi, Kagama, Saki Kashima, Mina Shirakawa, and Fukijin Death, who is replacing Natsuko Tora, which I think is an important part to add in there. And then on the Blue Star side, we have the World of Stardom champion Utami Hayashishita, the Wonder of Stardom champion Tam Nakano, Shuri, Saya Kamitani, Maika, Konami, Azumi, Unagi Sayaka, Ruaka, and the Special X Takumi Iroha. An absolute stacked crew here.
It is a stacked crew. It's even better than last year's, which was the best one yet. Just in terms of the objective lineup, you add people like Aroha and Natsupoi this year. I mean, those are big names just in and of themselves. And then you sort of round out the field with some of the new competitors. They're going to get a ton of experience wrestling 9 singles matches over the next couple months, in front of big crowds too. I mean, they're going to Yokohama Budokan and Ota Ward and Korakuen Hall and all these big places to wrestle big singles matches. So that is very exciting. The Aroha announcement was very funny, Scott. With the sort of introductory press conference, we had Saya Kamitani, who was essentially talking about all the people who she wants to beat in her block and who she wants to conquer. And one of the people she mentioned was Takumi Iroha. And little did she know, or she had sort of forgotten, Aroha had not been announced at that point, and so she spoiled the surprise a little bit. She was a great sport about it. She did some fake crying and was very sort of apoplectic towards it was amazing towards Rossi and everybody in attendance. It was very funny. Definitely classic Saya Kamitani there. But aside from that, if it had been If it had been almost anybody except Iroha, I think the story would have been that she spoiled the surprise. But yeah. I don't know about you, Scott. My perception was that everybody was just stoked that it was Iroha, and they're completely excited to see her in this tournament. So we'll get into Iroha later on in the show because she returned from a long injury absence at a Marvelous show this past week. So we'll get to sort of her story there, but just going over the 5 stars. So this is a round robin 20 participant tournament of singles matches. It's the exact same rules as the G1. So if you're familiar with the New Japan G1 Climax, you know what you're up against here. The only real difference is 20-minute time limits instead of 30-minute time limits. So obviously no matches will go longer than 20 minutes here. Scott, I think what we can do to start off is just talk about who we think is going to win this thing. You know, what is going to be the storylines at the very end. And to give us an idea, we have those final day matchups, which are Julia and Momo Watanabe, and then Mayu Iwatani versus Starlight Kid in the red blocks, and then Shuri versus Takumi Iroha, Utami versus Tam Nakano, and Micah versus Konami in the blue blocks. So those are kind of generally, if you get two strong singles competitors facing each other on the final day of a round robin tournament like this, decent chance they're going to be in contention at the very end. Do you get any sort of elucidation from that as to who you think out of those 8 or 10 people may have even a better chance than others?
Well, to start off, I think the schedule or that final day really tells you who is in contention here this year. Like, I think that gives you a definitive idea of who could win this whole thing. And just based off the matchups, first of all, I think that final day has the opportunity to be like a show of the year. We have two like nearly legitimate first time matchups. I don't know if people know
those are all on the same show, which is crazy. Yeah. I mean, that's legitimately a lineup as good as the Budokan show in terms of just high profile singles matches.
So you got Momo and Julia, who only singles match somehow in this 2 years since Julia's joined Stardom. Their only singles match is a 4-minute match from the Cinderella tournament last year, which, no offense, that's not a real match. It's not a real match. So that's exciting because they've been teasing that for some time here. You have Shuri and Takumi Iroha, who, when it comes down to it, you can't find two better matches, if that makes sense, in a sense of how their styles intertwine here. I'm excited for that one, and Siri's just having, one hell of a year, and Aroha is Aroha, so that's exciting. But then you have the two top champions in all of Stardom facing off with Tam Nakano and Utami Hayashida. But to me, the most intriguing matchups on those days are actually the other two, because Konami versus Micah. I know we're going to get into dark horses later, and that's a very interesting matchup in that sense. And Mayu versus Kid, to me, says Starlight Kid's going to have a chance to stop Mayu Iwatani from winning
That's
the block.
Exactly what it reads to me as well. I agree.
Which is awesome. We're going to, keep jumping back and forth here, but when it comes down to who I think is at least winning blocks, I'm not going to say my full winner yet. It got really messed up when Takumi Iroha entered this tournament. It really did. Because I did not think she was going to be in this. I was like, okay, it's going to be Rin. That's fine. She can take losses here and there. But once you put in the Ace of Marvelous, someone that many call one of the best, if not the best in the world, the game changes, ladies and gentlemen. And to me, it's that match that decides who wins the Blue Stars block. And I'd like to hear your thoughts before I just fully give my answer, because I've been racking my brain for a few days here.
I agree. I was just looking up if Shuri and Aroha had ever had a singles match against each other. Get a load of some. They have not. This will be their first ever singles match. Get a load of some of these tag matches though. Shuri and Takumi Iroha teamed to face Asuka Veni and Nyla Rose. A couple years ago, there was Mayu Iwatani and Takumi Iroha teaming up against Sari and Shuri. In a match, we had we've got Hikaru Shida and Takumi Iroha taking on Shuri and Rina Yamashita. I mean, these are like
insane.
These are like massive like dream matches, and they're from all over the place, like Marvelous and Wave and Diana, and that was, I believe that was actually Hikaru Shida's farewell show, maybe from Japan. Wow. That last tag match was on. So they've been involved in some all-star stuff, but this will be their first singles match. To me, I do get that sense as well. It's really interesting to me that Utami and Tam are in the same block, because that just kind of goes against conventional booking. Like if somebody wins, if somebody pins a champion, there's also a decent chance it goes to a draw, right? Mm-hmm. But if somebody pins a champion, they almost always get a title match when it comes to these
Stardom. They do, for sure.
Yeah. And it doesn't make a ton of sense to have your Wonder of Stardom champion challenge for the world title or vice versa. So that kind of leans me to the idea that they're going to do a draw. My thought is, and you brought up that Dark Horse match, I think Konami may be in points contention on the final night, and then Micah kind of plays spoiler for her. We've seen that most years New Japan will have somebody who's like surprisingly in contention on the final night. Like a couple years ago, was Zack Sabre Jr. had a chance to win on the final night of G1, but he was beaten. So I would look for something like that, but I agree that Shuri and Iroha seems like the final there. I'm going to go with Shuri. Personally, I think that makes the most sense based on how they've protected her and booked her so far this year. She has the SWA title, but that's like barely a title at this point. She doesn't defend it all that often. But she's undoubtedly the most protected person in the company, even more so than Utami at this point. So definitely. And then Iroha is extremely protected too. I mean, she's the ace of a different company and pinned Mayu Iwatani clean in the middle last year in her second to last major singles match in Stardom 2.
I'm really intrigued to see who she loses to, because I don't see her losing more than twice. And, it's 9 matches per person. And this is going to be a total test. And they put her in what I think is the most ridiculous block to put her in. Because you have the 2 champions. And I'm going to say right now, I think she beats one of the champions. I'll put that out there right now. I think Takumi Iroha is going to get a title match probably somewhere in here. But you also have Kamitani, who, if you told me that Shuri, Utami, and Saya were 3 of the top push people in this company, I would firmly believe you there. But I didn't even say Tam. Like that's why I'm so confused here. Like
Konami is there. Doing? I mean, she's super protected too.
She is.
The Iroha thing, I think you're right there. She probably loses to Shuri, and this is just based on conventional booking that makes sense. She probably loses to Shuri and Tam. That's probably my prediction. She has a decent chance to beat Utami and get sort of the title match like we got last year with Shuri challenging Mayu before she defended against Utami, who won last year's 5-star and won the title and has been there since. So I think that makes the most conventional sense to me. But I mean, it was so funny when we went over the lineups last week. Mm-hmm. I read the red block first because they've just been listed first and all this stuff, and I was like, man, that's a crazy block. and then we just went over this blue block, and it's like, oh my God, 7 of the 10 people in this block are incredibly well protected in this company. The 6 we just mentioned in those singles, and then Saya Kamitani as well. So this is an awesome tournament. Let's go over the red block. Or you go ahead. Final thoughts.
I just want to say I don't want to be mean to Unagi Sayaka and Ruaka, but like, oh boy, they're gonna have a tough time. Because I think Azumi's gonna play spoiler a few times at least for people because of her her like special pin. That's the beauty of a high-speed wrestler. You can steal a win here or there. So like I don't see how you have an Unagi or Ruaka win. Ruaka's probably gonna get disqualified a few times, but yeah, we can go to the Red Stars block, which is also great. I don't want to be mean to them either.
Yeah, so those final 2 that final day matchup, those final day matchups that we're looking at are Julia versus Momo and Mayu Iwatani versus Starlight Kid. Obviously, the story there, which we'll get into in a little bit, is Starlight Kid had an opportunity to rejoin Stars with Iwatani. She denied it. She did not. And she's doing her own thing with Oedo Tai at this point. So that's probably the biggest rivalry in the company right now. So that's obviously a major grudge match in the G1 here, but Julie and Momo is they've, like you said, they wrestled one time in 4 minutes in a Cinderella match that didn't, it was in front of no fans, and it was short, and it was barely a match. They're gonna kill each other on that final day, and it's weird because I mean, I think this is the final. I think it's going to be Julia and Mayu tied for the lead at the very end, and then Kid spoils and Julia beats Momo here. That's pretty much all I get from this from this block. But I'm very interested to see just who main events this show, because you would think Utami versus Tam. I mean, your top two single champions would have to main event, but that doesn't seem to have as much drama as some of these other matches that actually will have real implications for the tournament. So I have no idea. What thoughts do you have on the red block here in terms of who's going to win it?
So since it's been announced, I have been pretty set in my mind that when it comes down to the last day, I think Julia, Momo, and Mayu will all be within a chance of winning. And more than anything, I think they want that Julia-Momo match to have even more meaning than just Julia being able to win it. And I think, it's become a joke that, like, Momo doesn't get booked well and so forth.
Yeah.
I think her recent booking has showed that this is going to be a strong 5-star for her. And to me, it's really going to be down to that match, because I don't think Mayu beats Kid. I actually am thinking that's either a draw or Kid steals that win because of the current story going on with them. And they have clearly made sure to never do Julia versus Momo. Like, that is a job in itself to not spoil that match on a pay-per-view or just a random Korakuen. Like, the fact that they have keep that so protected in a sense makes me think that will be the big match of Red Stars. I'm picking Julia on this side. I've been pretty set with Julia winning the 5-star for like months, and the only thing that messed me up was adding Takumi Iroha, just because like that's Marvelous's ace, and that, it's hard to have another company's ace lose, especially when they return from injury. So that's the only thing that's really messed me up. And Shuri's like past year, or past couple months, I should say, have been incredible. But I'm thinking Julia, and I don't know if you are with me here. Julia and Shuri looks like the final. That makes the most sense.
Yep, I'm completely with you there. I agree. I've long thought Julia was going to win this thing. As soon as they announced the blocks, I was thinking, yep, Shuri is gonna win this. The Aroha thing doesn't mess me up too much, because I think the story there, it would be very surprising to me if Stardom booked an outsider, even though it's Aroha and they have the relationship and everything, to win this tournament, considering how much talent they have, and considering how prestigious this tournament has become. That would be pretty shocking to me if Iroha won, even made it to the finals. Even though she will be well protected in this tournament, and will almost certainly pin one of the top two champions in the company.
Yeah, what's made me confident in that is when they announced the schedule and they had Shuri versus Takumi versus Utami the day before the final day. Like that, to me, feels like that's when Takumi gets the win over a champion, and ultimately the title match. So yeah, good point there. But there's a lot to break down, so take it over.
Yeah, so we're on the same page. I think we're both going Julia versus Shuri for the final. Julia over Shuri for the finals here. The one thing that's given people pause, because I think that was kind of the general thought, but now people are kind of overthinking it and second guessing it a little bit, is I think there's a perception that Julia Utami is like the biggest possible match they can put on right now. And as such, they want to save that for Budokan, assuming they make that March Budokan show yearly. I disagree with that. I don't think, I mean, it's one of the biggest matches they can put on, but I mean, I don't think you stifle storytelling and what feels right and natural just to like make that happen. And I also just disagree with that evaluation anyway. I think Julia Mayu is the biggest match they can put on. They've only had that happen once, and it was in this tournament last year. And to me, I think the story, the progression of Julia wins this tournament, Utami gets a defense against Iroha, wins that, then loses to Julia, who then gets a couple defenses in January and February, then defends against Mayu at Budokan next year, makes perfect sense to me in terms of money making, everything like that. Does that sound like a plan to you? Does that sound plausible?
It definitely sounds plausible. So the thing with the Budokan is in March is that like Stardom doesn't have a certified like Wrestle Kingdom WrestleMania. Like they have never made that an official thing. And All Star Dream Cinderella, if that's the name they go with, makes all the sense in the world to be that moving forward. But to me, Utami versus Julia, I could see why people are saying that's the biggest match just with how incredible Utami's year has been. But I like your way of setting the scene. The only thing that I could see that Mayu Julia match is not happening is because I have convinced myself that Mayu Iwatani is the next white belt champion.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have been saving that Tam Mayu match for a very good reason. And I wonder if that's where we get. And, you know, we talked about last week how there's also the chance that they have a white belt match between Mayu and Starlight Kid down the line at a big show. Mm-hmm. So there are so many angles here, and they have so much talent. So, like, when we say, like, the biggest match in the company, some people might say it's Utami versus Shuri, too. Like, and that's happening in this tournament.
That's a contender for sure.
That's happening in this tournament. They could finally give one of them the big singles win. But there's a number of matches. I like your setup. I think Julia is definitely taking the title off of Utami, no doubt. And when it comes to that Budokan show, the only other option I could see is if Tam loses the white belt, they run that back again for the red belt.
All right, so that's our picks. We kind of got into this a little bit in terms of who singles champs are going to lose to. So we've got, it's weird, 4 of the 5 singles champs are in the blue block. Natsupoi is the only singles champion who's in the red block, and she's the high speed champion. So let's just start with her because I think it's sort of easy to outline that and maybe a little bit less redundant. To me, I would be stunned if she does not lose to both Koguma and Saki Kashima in this tournament to set up some sort of high-speed title match. That's Natsupoi here. I'm sorry, did I say both? One of each. One of the two. Koguma seems the most likely to me to set up that match. Her gimmick is literally the high-speed genius. But I mean, Natsupoi, we haven't even talked about her. She's gotten so much better over the last year, and you know she's got singles matches lined up with all these people, like dream matches that we haven't seen, like Momo and Mayu and stuff like that. It's going to be incredible. So I don't know if you have any other thoughts on Natsupoi. I think those seem pretty likely, and then of course Fukigen Death is an option, although they did have that match recently. I
think Poi definitely loses to Starlight Kid because that's the match they were setting up before Poi got hurt. And I feel like to, you know, remind people of that match, they can easily have Kid beat her again. And like you said, we haven't talked about Poi this whole time, which is kind of ridiculous because, like, you have, like, those top contenders as, like, Stardom's MVP this year, but, like, she's had such an underrated year that this could be one heck of a tournament for her just in terms of match quality. I don't think she's going to finish anywhere near the top of the block, but... and then the call for Kagama, I think that's definitely like, I feel like that's almost a guarantee that Kagama beats her just because of what you said. What is she, the high speed genius?
Yeah.
Right, yeah, that sounds right. As your Twitter says, hashtag Kagama 5-star.
That's right. She's my actual pick. It's gonna be great. So Natsupoi is gonna lose a couple to set up some high speed match. That also makes me think she'll probably get a pretty big upset in here against somebody, one of the big 3 in the block, Julia, Mayu, Momo.
I guess it would be Julia.
Yeah, absolutely. To even that out, the standings there. So then on the other block, we've got just like a mess of people who could lose. Overall, I think Iroha is almost a sure thing to beat Utami. I also think Shuri has a pretty decent shot as well, or will go to another draw, and then maybe an outside chance would be like Konami, and then they just don't do the title match or something like that. What about any other ideas for Utami there? Because she's so protected that it would be really surprising to see her lose to some of the people in this block.
Well, she's faced Shuri, she's faced Saya, and she's faced Micah. So that's
Right.
like that to me. That doesn't necessarily eliminate all three because Shuri is like just like the wildest person to predict in any tournament because she's so protected despite not being one of their top champions. I guess the SWA title is the top title, but I'm not going to say that. But I'm thinking of Roha, and then she probably has maybe 2 draws. That's what I'm feeling for Tom.
Yeah, that's the tough thing is like everybody, like the three, along with Julia, 3 of the top 4 most protected people in this tournament will be in this blue block. And I would hate to do 2 draws for one wrestler, and that's just so unsatisfying to me. It's like the reason I don't have Utami versus Shuri as a 5-star match is because it was a draw and a double count out, and I'm just like, or a double knockout, and I was like, yeah, I'd prefer just to finish. It's okay. Shuri can lose, but on the other hand, it's like, then do you beat Utami twice and maybe somebody doesn't get a championship match, or what happens there?
Yeah, well, they had Konami go to a 15-minute draw with her a couple weeks ago. So, and you brought her up, and that's really interesting to me because, like we said earlier, she's been incredibly protected despite, not having really any title matches besides that SWA title match, and like probably an Artist of Stardom title match, but that doesn't really matter here. I'm guessing Utami probably draws with Tam, and it's the Shuri one that I'm just so unsure about. Either Shuri gets the win or they go to a draw. I don't think Utami wins that match. That's what I'm gonna say Utami and Shuri draw, and I'm gonna say Utami just beats Tam and the no title match probably.
And then you just don't do a title match. That seems most likely to me. In terms of the other champions in the block, Tam, I see two that jump out immediately are Konami and Micah for Tam. Micah has never challenged for this title, but she's obviously been pushed decently well this year. Konami, similar to Utami, just went to a 15-minute draw recently with Tam Nakano. So those I think are a decent chance to beat her. Outside chance would be Azumi as well. Any other possibilities there? Of course, if they end up not having Utami defend against Aroha, if it's not going to be Aroha challenging Utami, it's going to be Aroha challenging Tam. Like, she's going to have it. It's going to happen to somebody. So any other possibilities there?
The only other one I was going to say was Azumi. I thought that was a good call by you. Like, because I feel like Uzumi is going to pin one of those top 4, which I have listed, which is Shuri, Utami, Tam, or Aroha. I think she'll beat one of those 4 just in like the big surprise pin, and I'm guessing it won't be Shuri just because they had that SWA title match earlier this year, and there's just very little chance that they give Azumi a world title match. So there's that.
Shuri seems like a similar deal as Tam. You could do Micah, you could do Konami. Well, you probably wouldn't do Konami where we already got that match.
Micah's a good one.
Saya Kamitani as well. Could beat Shuri too, but considering we think she's winning the block, I mean, she may only lose one match all tournament, and it may not even set up a title match.
Right.
So that's something to look for there. And then finally we have Unagi, and the only other future competitor here is Ruaka. Now Unagi already has a title match lined up with Rina at some point. After winning the title from Mina Shirakawa. So, I mean, you would expect Ruaka to beat Unagi. If she's going to get a win, it's going to be in that match, and maybe that'll be her only win of the tournament.
I'm just excited to see what Aroha does to Sayaka. That's literally all I'm here for. Like, I'm thinking back to the Julia and Mayu match with Unagi, and I'm like, well, Aroha might destroy poor Unagi, so that's really what I'm looking to. But yeah, Ruaka could beat her, and maybe Unagi pins Azumi. Like, that's give them their 2 points and call it a day.
So there's a ton of talent in this tournament. The fact that there's like 7 legitimate favorites or contenders is pretty impressive. as for a dark horse, I think if you know, I keep doing the G1 comparisons because I think it's just a natural, you know, comparison there. Someone like Sonata last year, I don't know if many people pegged him to make the finals, but despite being a pushed upper card wrestler, my dark horses in this one would be Konami. We've talked about her plenty just because she is so well protected and had that interesting series with Utami and Tam. And then somebody who we haven't even mentioned yet is Himika, who was in the finals of the tournament last year in her big sort of debut with the company. She lost to Utami Hayashishita in the finals last year, but she is in that Blue Stars block. And I mean, she's been nursing some injuries, so I'm kind of worried in terms of that. But wouldn't surprise me to see her top 3 or 4 in her block when it's all said and done, just based on the points.
Yeah, people forgot that Himika was in that final, I think, because they kind of chilled out with her push after that for a while, which is fine. You know, that happens. You give someone a good run in a tournament, then they slow down a little bit. Since you said Konami and Himika, I'm going to counter with Micah and Starlight Kid. First of all, with Micah, I think everyone could tell that Stardom sees a future Wonder or World of Stardom champion in Micah, maybe within the next year or two, because I feel like she only improves every single match and every single outing, and I could see her get a big win against a Shuri or a Saya or maybe even a Aroha. Like, that wouldn't shock me if Micah somehow beat her. And then when it comes to Kid, the belief for me with Kid is that, you know, you enter her into this huge angle where she's essentially, to me, the lead of Oedo Tai moving forward. No offense to Konami, I just think the story...
She's the figurehead.
Yes. Sure. And when you do a story with Mayu Iwatani in Stardom, you matter to the company. You matter to this company. And after her title match, where I thought she looked really good, and, you know, you could debatably say she got screwed by her own team, I think she could have a good showing here, like a surprisingly good showing. But that's mostly just because I wanted to counter you and give some other options.
Yeah.
But Himika's definitely a good shout.
So next week we will have the first 2 days. Those are going to be on pay-per-view from Yokohama Budokan, so big shows there. I mean, these lineups are just like unbelievable. Julia versus Starlight Kid, Mayu versus Momo Watanabe, Natsupoi Koguma. That's probably where we get that big Koguma upset. Utami versus Micah, rematch from their great world title match earlier in the year. Tam Unagi, some intra Cosmic Angel stuff. Shuri versus Sayaka Mitani, that's a super unique matchup. Mayu Julia, Momo Natsupoi, Saki Kashima and Starlight Kid. We get some intro Oedo Tai stuff. Utami versus Sayaka Mitani, their rematch from Budokan. Shuri and Micah, Tam Nakano and Konami. That could be Konami's big win. Azumi versus Unagi Sayaka as well on that second day. So I mean, this tournament's going to be so awesome. I'm so stoked to watch it. So we'll give you full previews and predictions for that next week.
Yes.
Before we move on to some recaps and previews here for Stardom, professional wrestling should be fun, right, Scott?
Absolutely.
Do you have anybody in this tournament that you're just like getting behind and you're like, I want to see this person win the tournament here? You know, I'm going to be rooting for them in all their matches. I enjoy this competitor. Anybody jump out? They can be a favorite. They can be a dark horse. They can be Ruaka. It can be anybody like that come to mind?
Yes. So I'm not going to say Momo, even though like many people know that she is probably my favorite wrestler right now to watch. And I just think that's too cheesy of sorts. I'm going to go with Natsupoi. I think she is going to have a really fun tournament because she's high speed, but at the same time, she's just really good. And cheering for Natsupoi from beginning to end will be a lot of fun for me. Of course, I love Takumi Iroha and I love Momo, so like I would love to pick them, but I'm trying to pick someone different here, like you said. So I'm really excited to see what Poi does, especially after having a month off. I think her fresh could be a really fun run for her.
For me, I have my hashtag Koguma 5-star in my in my Twitter name. The reason so here's the deal. I said I was going to reveal my favorite Stardom wrestler on the show today. My favorite Stardom wrestler is Saya Ida, who unfortunately is injured. She had a torn ACL earlier in the year. She would have been in this tournament had she not had that. I adore watching her wrestle and hearing her cut promos. She's got a ton of intensity. I mean, if this is my company, she's a future top star, no doubt. And I think Koguma in spirit is the closest that we're going to get to Saya Ida in this tournament. Same stable, similar style, all that type of stuff. So I'm gonna be backing up Koguma in this one. We're gonna get some upsets here. She's gonna beat Natsupoi, so take that. On that first day, we'll be locking horns. But Natsupoi and Koguma, the official mascots of the 5-star going forward for this tournament.
That's funny.
All right, Scott, let's move on to some Stardom recaps and previews. Yes, we're not done with the Stardom. We are, after all, named the 5-star podcast. So we had a couple big shows in Stardom over the last week. I guess a few big matches. We had the Unagi Sayaka versus Mina Shirakawa future title match. Mina defending that title that she had just won a couple weeks ago. Unagi won the title as expected. Mina's reign was like 2 weeks. And we weren't huge fans of their first match, and I thought this one was even worse. I really just didn't think there was anything to sink your teeth into. The crowd didn't care one bit. It ended, and usually even in a quiet crowd, if there's like a title change in front of them, they'll react. They didn't react one bit to Unagi winning this title. I mean, it is the future title. These people are not super experienced, which is fine, but we have seen both of them in really good singles matches, of course, against much more experienced, competitors. But this didn't really do it for me, Scott.
Oh, it was terrible. It was one of the worst title matches I've seen all year. And I'll double down and say it was the worst Stardom title match I've seen all year. It was just really bad. Like, I think you tweeted or someone tweeted, maybe it was JD, 5 minutes in and they just acted like nothing happened. And it was, it was in slow motion the entire time. I don't know if you felt that way. Like, I never felt like they were picking it up. There was no point that I thought, oh, the end could be here. The end just happened. Like, it was just bad. And I feel like they could have done better. I've seen them do better. We literally saw it 2 weeks ago, and I didn't even love that match, but it was definitely better. I know people, part of the Wrestling Observer, liked that first match. Again, I didn't, but no one can watch this match and tell me it was good. I'm sorry.
The interesting thing about the future title is that you go back forever. If you wrestle in the future title, you're doing classic pro wrestling stuff. Like, you're doing the grappling, you're doing the you build to suplexes. You don't do a ton of strikes unless it's like forearms and stuff like that. Maybe you do one big spot. I mean, really the only big spot that I can remember over the last year in a future title match is Micah crushing Saya Ida with a headbutt, a shoot headbutt. I mean, that's like it. I mean, but it's tough when the juxtaposition is these, despite their experience level, Unagi and Mina are not presented as like essentially young lions. They're not presented as rookies, right? They're in the Cosmic Angel stable. They are champions. They've been champions all year with those six person belts, the artist belts. And they're, they have the look and the presentation of people who are established roster members. And yet here, because it's the future title, I feel like they're expected to wrestle like rookies. And that just doesn't work for me. I would much rather just do a normal match. I don't think that takes away from the gimmick of the title or anything like that. Because you want to put on the best matches. Otherwise, people aren't going to care about this future title anymore. It's just going to be like, oh, I can skip that because it's just rookies who aren't any good. I'm very excited for the Rina match. I think Rina is legitimately a better wrestler than both of them at this point in her career. She's 14 years old, for those who are unaware, but she does have them both beat in experience. So that should be an interesting matchup.
I think all three sisters are better than them.
Oh yeah. Rina and Hina are the same. I mean, they're twins. You can't really pick a better one between them.
Cannon's just like
Hanan is interesting because she does like the grapple stuff. She's like wrestles like a shooter, even though she's a high schooler. It's very fun.
She said on a show last week she's going to be the ace of Stardom. I hope people remember that, because that's a bold statement.
That is quite a bold statement. I guess we'll see.
She's learning from the right person.
She's tall.
She's tall, and she's learning under Mayu Iwatani. That's a good start.
All right. We also had the main event was Mayu Iwatani taking on the entirety of Oedo Tai except Starlight Kid. This was a gauntlet. It was pretty much as expected. There was also over-the-top rules, so it wasn't just like Mayu was just pinning everybody the entire time. The match layout went pretty much... Go ahead.
That would have been hilarious if she pinned all 5 of them.
Yeah, that would have been that would have been something, including like Konami.
Yeah.
The one sort of twist at the end, we kind of thought it would start with Rina, right, or Death, and then go all the way to Konami as the killer at the end. They didn't do that. They had it was Ruaka at the very end, right, who then just got DQ'd. And that was the end of that. So Starlight Kid, so Mayu having vanquished Oedo Tai, Starlight Kid was given the opportunity to return to Stars, but she did not. She rejected Mayu Iwatani. She is officially Dark Kid. Dark Kiddo is here. And that's obviously that big grudge match that we will have in the 5-star this year. Any thoughts on the gauntlet here?
I thought the match was pretty fun, for a gauntlet. Wasn't too bad. Mayu, going for 20 minutes is never a bad thing. I enjoyed the little segment with her and Saki and her and Konami the most. And I thought Kid's promo after the match was probably the best part, where she said, "I'm going to be your equal," rather than in the shadow of Mayu Iwatani, which I thought was pretty cool. And then Mayu added, "Well, they always come back to me," which is actually relevant with like the likes of an Io Shirai, who turned on her at one time, but that was their last match together. So little things like that you enjoy. But I'm happy for Kid most of all here. Now that we have established that this story is over for now in terms of Mayu trying to get Kid back, I think Kid's going to have a stellar time as a heel, and one match in as a singles heel star, and I think she's already killing it. So
that match was challenging Tam Nakano for the Wonder of Stardom Championship. That match just happened yesterday. We were so happy. Yes. Stardom got it uploaded. We were able to recap it quick. Didn't have to wait 8 days or whatever. So this match was great, I thought. I mean, there was heel stuff. Starlight Kid, it's not like she's just put on a different, coat of paint and she's still the same wrestler. There was interference and distractions and stuff like that, but not in a brawling sort of out on the outside, all over the, all over the arena type thing that Natsuko Tora does. It was more just sort of opportunistic stuff. I mean, Kid, it's crazy that I'm harping on this because it really probably isn't that big of a deal, but the gear change, I think, just makes so much of a difference. Like, she's so fast out there and athletic, and I think she's going to have this 20-year long rivalry with Azumi or whatever, and I think people always pegged Kid as like the bigger future star, but Azumi is the more talented in-ring wrestler, more the better athlete, that type of stuff. Kid was like blowing circles around Tam in this match. I mean, she was all over the place here. Tam did retain, of course. At the very end, Ruaka tried to get involved. That bumbling Ruaka tried to smack Tam over the head with the bin, but it ended up hitting Kid instead, and then Tam hit the arm trap German suplex. It's like the Twilight Dream, I think is what it's called. That's kind of her super finisher to win the match here. So a very good match between Tam and Kid here. Any thoughts, Scott?
I thought Starlight Kid looking more vicious was a good way to show her heel side, which is a vicious side that if you've ever watched her matches with Julia, you've seen. Her and Julia, for some reason, just have this like absurd chemistry together where they just like hate each other and beat the living bleep out of each other.
Yeah.
And I thought...
Well, just quickly, if you recall back to, the hottest feud in Stardom this year was Tam Nakano and Julia. And Tam wanted that, she hates Julia. She wanted that Wonder of Stardom championship so much that she was willing to put her hair on the line. And then right as she makes that challenge, Starlight Kid runs out and is like, no. I'm in line first. You've gotten your chances, hag.
Yeah.
And it's me now. And then they ended up having a fantastic match too. So just, it calls back to that. And it was an interesting conversation on Twitter yesterday that a couple people, I think maybe it was overblown, were saying that Tam Nakano was overrated or something like that. But I think you and I disagree. She's maybe the best storyteller in Joshi right now.
Yeah, she's one of the best storytellers in wrestling, probably the best in Joshi, just the way she is able to bring emotion out of her opponent in every single match. And I thought the beauty of this match was the destruction of Nakano's back, which was really the story here, which is interesting because both of Nakano's finishers are she has to bridge on both of them. So I thought that was a smart move to have Kid really destroyed. She hit like this rock bottom backbreaker at one point that I like literally cringed in my seat. I was like, oh, that can't feel good at all. But like you said, Ruaka did the thing where she hit Kid instead of Tam, and I thought that was interesting because you're already planting the seed that maybe without Oedo Tai, Kid wins the title. If you think about it. So I think that's an interesting seed to plant, especially ahead of the 5-star.
So that was a very good match. Earlier today, we had Julia and Shuri defend their Goddesses of Stardom tag team belts against Tami Hayashishita and Sayaka Mitani. I did have it spoiled for me. Unfortunately, I won't spoil it here or anything for you guys, but we'll definitely review that match next week. Considering the talent involved, I'm assuming it was fantastic. We also have the Korakuen Hall preview show for the 5-star upcoming. That will be on Sunday this weekend. And we get sort of a series of shuffle tag matches to set up the 5-star. So get a load of these lineups. We have Mayu Iwatani, Momo Watanabe, and Saki Kashima against Julia, Starlight Kid, and Mina Shirakawa. And then in the main event, we have Utami Hayashishita, Tam Nakano, and Micah taking on Shuri, Konami, and Unagi Sayaka. So those are some wacky teams right there. It should be entertaining. For me, Scott, the can they get along kind of gets old if you do it more than once on a show. So I'm interested to see kind of how the matches go. They won't do this, but if they wrestle primarily like just a standard 6-person tag, but with everybody a little bit more motivated because, they're not used to working with all these people at the same time, like, I think these matches could be really good. But in any case, it's going to be super exciting and could set some things up for the tournament.
Yeah, I'm just excited to watch Momo and Mayu team together. I think, like, out of all the combos, that's just really cool because you don't see that really ever. And if you were taking my money, I'd say those two are probably the most consistent in all of Stardom, so that'll be interesting. But I'm with you there. Like, the can they get along does get tiring, especially for someone that may or may not watch WWE. So I'm intrigued. Like, it'll be fun at the very least.
Yeah. So the other quick note is that the Mayu match is all Blue Stars wrestlers, and the Utami match is all Red Stars wrestlers. So that is going to be that. Or I got it backwards. The Utami match is going to be all Blue Stars wrestlers. The Mayu match is all Red Stars wrestlers. So you get that. You get the idea. Tokyo Joshi Pro. I think we're done with Stardom here. Scott, we only did, what did we do? 49 minutes on Stardom to kick off the show. And then we have, believe it or not, the number 2 tournament in all of Joshi going on at the exact same time. We have the TJPW Tokyo Princess Cup. That kicked off last night. Before we get to that, Scott, did you watch the July 7th? Were you able to watch the July 17th main event for TJPW?
Yes, you recommended I watched it, so I made sure to go out of my way to check it out, it was awesome.
Yeah, this was Miyu Yamashita, Maki Ito, and Mizuki taking on Rika Tatsumi, Miyu Watanabe, and Suzume. And I thought this was the best multi-man match TJPW has put on all year. It was just a VOD single cam show, but everybody was super motivated. There was some fun spots at the beginning, innovative stuff. I mean, there was not a moment of downtime in this match, and then it culminated, Scott, in this just incredible spin kick from Yamashita on Suzume. She just killed Suzume with this spin kick. It was I mean, the one with Hikari Noa earlier in the year got super gift. I thought this one was even better.
This one was viral.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Malachi Black shared it. So that was a great match. Any brief thoughts on this match here? Anything to add?
The perfect teaser for the tournament in my mind. I think that's always something you look for, and I think that it's funny that we talked about that those two Stardom tags, because really this is what that was almost. So yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun, and that kick was a thing of beauty, so can't complain there.
All right, last night we had the first show in the Princess Cup so far. We had 4 singles matches. This was Arisu Endo versus Mahiro Kiryu, Moka Miyamoto and Raku, Pam Harajuku and Mirai Mayumi, and Miyu Yamashita versus Nao Kakuta. Scott, I didn't think this was a super strong night of action. Those first 3 matches, I mean, there's really not much to say. I thought Arisu Endo versus Mahiro Kiryu was the best of those 3, and that's like best is in quotation marks. Moka and Raku was just nothing. I thought, I mean, that was like, I don't know. This is like the disconnect, I think, between a lot of TJPW fans and maybe you and I, is that I just don't get into the idol aspect. Like, if I want to care about idols, I'll listen to K-pop, which I do. And it's, I'm here to watch professional wrestling, and Raku, as much as charismatic as she is and as popular as she is, like, what she does is pretty far removed from what I like in professional wrestling. And then we had Pam Harajuku and Mirai Mayumi. Some people were complimentary of this one. I wasn't. Really, it was really just Pam, of all people, beating up on Mayumi for like 80% of the match, which makes no sense. Pam's a comedy character, Mayumi's like a shooter, but then Mayumi did get the win at the very end. No crowd reaction at all for any of those 3 matches either. Do you have any thoughts on those 3?
Pam liked my tweet of me saying it was not a good match, so that was pretty cool.
She's done that. She does that. I think she just likes every tweet that has Pam Harajuku in it, because she's done the same for me as well.
But I did not enjoy this at all. Like, so this is really sad, but I have to tell a little story. I watched the Unagi Sayaka versus Mina Shirakawa match, then watched this. This was like the most painful run of matches I've watched in a very long time, and in order. I was like, well, I see better stuff on Dark Elevation, so that's not great. That's no shot at Dark Elevation, people. That's the A show, because that's where the women wrestle. But that being said, yeah, this was maybe one of the worst opening nights of a tournament I've ever seen. And I guess that's just kind of to be expected, because you don't have Yamashita versus Mizuki going on, which is fine. But those first 3 matches were not great. I thought the last one was fine, but yeah, no, I'm just going to stop before I say something bad.
The main event was clearly the best of the 4. I mean, I'd be stunned if anybody had a different evaluation. It started out pretty similar. I mean, Kakuta is just not a pushed character at this point. I mean, she's solid, but she doesn't really, there's nothing about her that really stands out to me. She's very solid, and that's it. But she just sort of got the heat on the world champion Yamashita for a while, and then like the final 3 minutes, I was loving it. I adored that, because Yamashita, like, the crowd isn't reacting at all to anything that's happening, and Yamashita is just murdering this person with kicks. Like Yamashita, legitimately, she has the best kicks of anybody in wrestling, male or female, anywhere in the world. She has the best kicks out of anybody. Just killing Kakuta with head kicks at the end, got the relatively easy win to move on. But not the strongest first night of action for the Princess Cup.
No, it was a tough night, but I am confident that it will only get better because it can't get worse.
Yeah, and we'll get those matchups between top stars sooner than later. I think that's also TJPW has grown in standing as a legitimate wrestling company. Up until a couple years ago, everybody was just like, oh, they're just idols. They barely wrestle. They don't hit hard, that type of stuff, right? They have done a really good job of sort of shedding that label. But at the same time, they started from scratch, and almost everybody in the company is inexperienced. And that's just what's going to happen. Like, that's just what's going to happen at this point. So, I have no doubt that in subsequent years, these first round matchups will get better and better and better until they're something, matches that you need to see. For tonight, by the time you hear this, obviously these matches will have already happened. I'll be watching this live. This is Miyu Watanabe and Kaya Toribami, Yuki Aino versus Yuki Arai, Kari Noa and Rika Tatsumi, and Marika Kobashi against Nodoka Tenma will be those first round matches. I definitely think Noah and Tatsumi is going to be the best match of those, probably the best match of the first round, but Kobashi and Tenma could be pretty good too. So that is that's just a much better lineup in general than the first night. And then we have the second round. We already know that, so it's going to be Yamashita versus Yuki Kamifuku. It's going to be Mirai Mayumi against Mizuki. That could be a really good match. It's going to be Raku versus Maki Ito. That's going to be comedy. And it's Mahiro Kiryu against Suzume in the second round. So those are the second round matches announced at this point. By the end of the weekend, by the time we record next, we will be down to the final 8 already. So a lot of eliminations going on early on. But anything jump out at you over the next few days, or do you think we should just move on from our sad first day of the Princess Cup?
It's best we move on. I look forward to next week talking about it.
I do too. We'll get those better matches for sure.
Yes, the Mizuki match sounds great, by the way.
Quick note, I did preview the Princess Cup, so if you're still kind of unfamiliar with everybody and you want to jump in, this is like a good time to jump in because you're not really missing a whole ton with these first round matchups, but we're going to get some big ones going forward, so check that out on the Fight Game Media website. Marvelous. Let's move on to Marvelous. They had their biggest show of the year so far, biggest solo show, I should say. This was at Korakuen Hall earlier in the week on Monday. 3 major matches that we previewed last week: Takumi Iroha versus Hibiki in the former's return match, Mayu Iwatani versus Rin Katakura, and the high-speed dream match of Starlight Kid and Mio Momono against Azumi and Mei Hoshizuki. Let's start with Mayu Rin. I was a little disappointed by this. I mean, the match itself, and I think a lot of people were too, the match itself was just fine. I mean, it was really good, in fact, when they were out there, but it went 7 minutes and 17 seconds. And, I want to see Rin get bigger opportunities. She's been there forever at this point. And I think it's time to really, really start to do stuff. I wonder if there was something else going on.
Yeah, I was stunned by how quick this was. I feel like they never got to really get going, and like you said, when they were out there, it was good. It just never got to the point of being very good or even great. Like, they needed 15 minutes, I think, to tell the story, and they got less than half. It definitely upset me, but I was a little shocked at how fast paced it was. When it got going, I was like, this is weird. And then, before you knew it, it was over. They had some good near falls in it that, kept me on the edge of my seat, which is always good. But definitely a letdown for what I think these two could put together if you give them more time.
Next, we had what I thought was the match of the night. Kid Momono against Azumi and Hoshizuki. This was high speed, distilled down to its purest form. Ton of innovative stuff, a million cradle sequences, back and forth, running the ropes, and the amount of cardio it took to participate in a match like this is unbelievable. The big story, I mean, there was really too much to name in terms of individual spots, but the big story I thought was they didn't beat. I thought for sure that that either that I thought for sure that Hoshizuki was getting pinned here, or what was the finish? I've completely forgot. Was it Momono pinning Azumi? Was that what it was?
Yeah.
Yes, and yeah. And I was very surprised by that when I saw it, because Azumi's going to be in the 5-star in a couple weeks. But of course, you look at their standing in their companies. Azumi's maybe the 15th top pushed star in Stardom, and Mio Momono's top 3 in Marvelous here, so that made sense. And then Kid is higher pushed than Azumi as well, and Hoshizuki's a rookie, so it makes sense to beat that team if you're going to position them in that way. But match was super entertaining, Scott, and I assume you thought the same, considering you're Mio Momono's biggest fan.
Parker, you know why this match was good?
Why?
Because Mio Momono was in it. I thought the closing sequence between Momono and Azumi not only was shocking of how good it was, because they're both incredible, so like let me put that out there, but they've never worked together in a match. So I was stunned at how they were able to have such great chemistry so easily, and I was also shocked by the finish as well. I did not think Azumi was getting pinned. But after the match, Azumi grabbed the head of Mio and was like, okay, this isn't over. So if like they're teasing a singles match on maybe a pay-per-view down the line, just do it. Just don't even be afraid of it.
Don't even think about it. It's going to be perfect. Who cares about the finish?
Exactly. But yeah, Mio's really good. Starlight Kid and May also had an incredible sequence in this match. I don't want to leave them out, because I know like the other two are the bigger stars of the match right now. But seeing Kid back in the babyface role was weird, because she's been doing the Oedo Tai stuff. But when you team with Mio Momono, you have to be babyface. There's no other option. But there wasn't really heels or baby faces in the match. Like you said, it was just high speed.
Yeah.
Absolutely absurd. There was trading of forearms, just a lot of clean, like crazy quick pins. There was just so much. I'm not even going to try to sum it up. Just go out and watch it if you like high speed wrestling or any of these wrestlers, because it was a good time.
The combined age of the 4 wrestlers in the match is 83.
Oh, God.
So divide 83 by 4 and you get the median age, or the average age, of everybody in there. Hoshizuki is, what is she? She's 18, I want to say.
As is Azumi.
A ton of young talent.
Wrestling is in a good place moving forward. Let's just say.
Oh, yeah. And then our main event, this was polarizing.
Yes.
And I was kind of on the lower end of it, I think. Takumi Iroha's return match after an 8-month absence was against Hibiki. If you're unfamiliar, Hibiki is very young. She's kind of developed an especially sort of crazed and wild character in recent months. She had that kind of that half shoot thing earlier in the year, where Chigusa Nagayo released a statement that was like, I'm sorry on behalf of Hibiki for the way she's behaved at shows, and people thought it was serious. I'm pretty sure that was part of an angle at this point. Yes. But they wrestled 26 minutes, and this had a lot of interference, a lot of brawling. Andres Miyagi got involved a lot. She was supporting Hibiki in this one. And eventually Aroha got the win. I thought when Aroha was on offense, it was awesome, because she would just kill Hibiki with these kicks and suplexes. But aside from that, this match didn't really do much for me. Not in the sense that I'm lower on Aroha than I was, but I just didn't think it was laid out like I wanted. Maybe if I followed Marvelous closer and watched every show that I possibly could, which I don't, I would be more into it. But and I don't even think Hibiki's bad or anything. Like, I've seen Hibiki in good matches. She's really good in tag matches, actually. She's kind of built differently than a lot of the wrestlers in Marvelous, but she is still super athletic and fast and stuff like you expect a Marvelous wrestler to be. So I just didn't think the match was laid out all that well, Scott.
I guess that's fair, and I think you make the good point of, like, you need to follow Marvelous a bit more to, I think, appreciate the match, because Hibiki is, like you said, you said the match was polarizing. I think Hibiki herself is polarizing. Her character.
There's one very vocal anti-Hibiki person on Twitter. I think most people like Hibiki, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I think the way they told it, attacking the legs of Aroha, made a lot of sense. I thought Hibiki was the right opponent for Aroha because she wrestles rather safe, if that makes sense. Like, she's not going to do some move that's going to possibly re-injure Takumi. So that's why I thought that was a good idea. Like you said, when Aroha was on offense, that was the best part of the match. She didn't miss a beat. I think that's the most important takeaway from this. Her kicks were just as fluid and fast and powerful. She looked like an absolute star once again. The fans were into it, which was really good. Like, I thought the heel stuff got over really well, even if you didn't enjoy it. And I meant to say this earlier during the 5-star preview, but Aroha doesn't wrestle in the 5-star until the end of August.
Yep, she has like a month off until she gets going.
So I think it's going to be interesting to see her, few matches between there, because based off match number 1, she looked very good. She took a lot of punishment, especially to her leg, and I liked the match. Like you said, it wasn't one to like write home about. It was definitely very polarizing. I could understand why someone wouldn't like it, but 2 thumbs up for Aroha's comeback in a full sense. She went in, she came out healthy. That's what matters the most.
One other note from this show: this was technically supposed to be like the prelude to Kaoru's retirement show. Unfortunately, they wrestled a 6-man hardcore tag, and she broke her ankle in the match. She was pushed off a ladder, sent to the floor, and broke her ankle on the land. It was pretty nasty. So that was really disappointing to see. She'll get her retirement show when she eventually recovers, but
against Aroha.
Yes, against Aroha, and so that's a delayed retirement there. So very unfortunate. Kaoru's a legend. She's been around forever, 52 years old. So that is the update there. There are a lot of talent on the show too. Like, they brought in obviously Asuka, Veni. They had some regulars like Chikayo Nakashima and Yuki Miyazaki, Tomoko Watanabe. Hartley Jackson of 01 came in and wrestled Leo Isaka, so that was fun too. All right. I think that's going to do it for for Marvelous. God, I'm still in Stardom mood. What's going on here? This 5-star, man. All right. Ice Ribbon. We've got a preview for this weekend. On Saturday, Ice Ribbon will be running Korakuen Hall. They are going to crown the vacant tag team championships. The previous champions were Hiroyo Matsumoto and Hiragi Kurumi. Kurumi suffered an injury about a month ago, and they had to vacate the championships. So they're getting a 3-way tag match to crown new champions. The teams are going to be Matsumoto teaming with Tsukasa Fujimoto. I'll get into why that's interesting in a second. Risa Sera will team with Akane Fujita, and Mayu Yukihi and Maika Ozaki, Rebel X Enemy, will be the third team out there. Fujimoto and Matsumoto are facing off with each other at the biggest Ice Ribbon show of the year in Yokohama in a month. So obviously that's like a wacky team there to have them team together. I don't think they're going to win the tag titles here, because we do need to set up a tag title match there. And then the other, Sarah and Fujita, they're kind of roster mainstays. I know you haven't watched a ton of Ice Ribbon, Scott, and you may not know the entire, roster filled out. They're kind of hardcore at this point, but they'll wrestle standard matches as well. And then Yukihi and Ozaki were champions earlier in the year, and Yukihi is a fantastic wrestler, and I thought Ozaki held her own as tag champ with her as well. So they would probably be my pick. Any ideas on this one, Scott? Or in any case, I think it's going to be a fantastic match.
WWE brains telling me the champion and the challenger win. So Matsumoto and Fujimoto. I actually think there's a slight chance they win, just because.
Yeah, it's not out of the question.
You like that little story going into the match. Add a little question like, can they get along? But if they do get along, how is that going to affect their championship match? So I kind of like that idea, but I was definitely going to probably go with Yukihi and Ozaki. That makes a lot of sense to just put the belts back on the former champions.
Nothing big else really on the show. So we are in full swing in the road to Yokohama for Ice Ribbon. That show, by the way, it's unfortunate that it's right in the heart of 5-star season, because that's essentially my most anticipated Joshi show of the year. Every year, Ice Ribbon knocks it out of the park. So would definitely be on the lookout once we get the full card there. Miscellaneous stuff, Scott. Just do a quick roundtable to get a hold of all the news around the Joshi world. We've got Oz Academy, which we have, which we have not talked about on the show yet. Maya Yukihi won the Oz title from Kaoru Yoneyama, Fukigen Death in Stardom. You can see why they did that, considering Death was just announced for the 5-star as a replacement, and you probably don't want your top champion going 3-6 or 2-7 in a round robin tournament. So that makes sense. Also in Oz Academy, Saori Anu is returning at the August 18th Mayumi Ozaki 35th anniversary show. So I don't know how much you know about Oz Academy. There is a top stable that's Ozaki-gun, that's Mayumi Ozaki, and they do a ton of heel heat, ton of interference and that type of stuff, ostensibly to build up a babyface. This is what we're going to get for the title at the Ozaki 35th anniversary show. The top 4 members of Ozaki-gun, so that's Yukihi, the current champion, the returning Saori Ano, Mayumi Ozaki, the legend, and Yumi Oka. They're going to do a tag match. We don't know what the teams are. And then the winners of the tag match will then face off for the title. Even though Yukihi is already the champion, that's what we're getting on this show. It's kind of baffling to me. I don't like Oz Academy, personally. I think they do some really good stuff. Like, it's interesting because they're almost better than anybody else at getting crowd investment on a show, and that is so important to me. But I just don't get into the matches themselves. So that's going to be a wacky 4-way for the title. I assume Ozaki's winning, so we can set up their big Yokohama show, which is always around the same time that Ice Ribbon does theirs.
That match would be cooler if there wasn't already a champion.
Right? Yukihi just wins it, and then she immediately essentially vacates, and they do a 4-way, but she's still in it. It's just very strange booking. Yeah. But Oz is all about their biggest show of the year. Like, they build and build to that. That is by far their biggest moneymaker and everything like that. So if it means doing something wacky to get the title on exactly who they want it to be and set up the exact match they want it to be, they're going to do it. Wave. But yeah, just some interesting shows coming up. Wave's got an interesting scramble tag show with a lot of just really good talent from around the Joshi scene. I'm actually not sure if this show is going to be streamed. I hope it is, because we've got Rin Katakura, Takumi Iroha, Yu of Sendai Girls, Mio Momono's on the show, Meho Shizuki's on the show, plenty of Actress Girls talent as well. So, I mean, that's a ton of talent right there for a Wave show. Definitely looking forward to that.
Wave's fun because they bring so many talents together.
Yeah, Wave is. They have like 4 established roster members, kind of like SEAdLINNG, but who they bring in. I mean, they have this reputation from the Catch the Wave tournament. Obviously, they brought that back this year, but historically, it's always been just a very enjoyable and strong tournament from start to finish. Mm-hmm. And I think that gives them some goodwill. And Sakura Hirota is beloved. She's sort of the face of that promotion. Mm-hmm. Couple SEAdLINNG shows. We're going to have Sendai Girls talent on the one that was actually just today. Hasn't been put to tape yet, but I'm hoping it is. The big main event there was Nanai Takahashi, Yu, and Hanori Hana versus Ryo Mizunami, Mika Iwata, and was it Yumi Oka, I believe, or Eureka Oka? That's who it is.
Yes.
And then upcoming, we will have Ryo Mizunami, Rina Yamashita, and Itsuki Aoki versus Arisa Nakajima, Hakano Nakamori, and Makoto. So that's 6 of the bigger SEAdLINNG regulars for their upcoming shows. This is interesting. Saki Akai is going to get a major match at DDT Wrestle Peter Pan. She's going to join her Eruption stable. She's going to challenge Damnation for the 6-man titles. So that's going to be Tetsuya Endo, Soma Takao, and Daisuke Sasaki versus Kazusada Higuchi, Yukio Sakaguchi, and Saki Akai. So Akai is going to be the only woman in the match. Have you watched much of her in DDT, Scott?
Yeah, okay, so I've been meaning to say this for weeks now, but Saki Akai, Saki-sama, has to be maybe the most interesting wrestler in the world because of how different her two characters are.
It's crazy.
Like, Saki-sama is such a character-based, like, it's not about work rate at all, and she has it down to a T in TJPW. And then she just does crazy stuff in DDT. Like, she doesn't care. Like, I saw her match with, was it Chris Brooks earlier this year?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The
Extreme title.
Yes, I really liked that match. And I was like, this is the same person? Had no idea. Like, I legitimately had to double take because I was like, is that Saki-sama wrestling Chris Brooks? And the way she was wrestling, I was like, okay, so, like, there's a lot of talent behind the pomp and circumstance when she wants to go. So I'm pretty, having a match at Peter Pan's pretty cool for her.
Yep, that Eruption stable, they were involved in what was considered to be the best, one of the best match epics of last year's. Akai, Higuchi, and Sakaguchi took on Yuki Ueno, Naomi Yoshimura, and Kazuki Hirata at the road to Peter Pan last year for those 6-man titles, and then they immediately ran it back and wrestled a match for the tag titles, just the duos championship. That was a ton of fun. Akai is super interesting in DDT because she's such, as you say, she's willing to do everything. She's a baby face. I mean, she's going to be in there with heels, like top heels. And she's going to get like battered in this match, but she's going to make some awesome comebacks too. She'll probably stiff some people because she can do that because she's so slight. But that's definitely something I'm looking forward to. There will almost certainly be a TJPW match on that show, at least one. So we'll be keeping you posted on that too. Brief news: Rin of Gato Move / Choco Pro is retiring. She's only 16. She could obviously return once she's done with school. That was kind of the excuse there, but she is done for now. I don't watch Choco Pro, so I have never seen a Rin match, but obviously wishing the best for her. And then finally, we have the Yuka Sakazaki tracker. My
favorite part of the week.
I was so excited last week, Scott, when we debuted it, because I thought it was just a fun thing to sort of link Joshi to American wrestling. And the one thing I forgot is that we're talking about the All Elite Wrestling women's division, and they'll just decide not to book Yuka Sakazaki for a week. So the update is we believe she's still in the United States. And that is the extent of that. She was not on Dynamite. She was not on Dark. She was not on Elevation.
They're running out of time.
Yeah, she's got like 2 weeks left. I thought I was like, man, she got a win on Dynamite. She might get a title match, and then she's gone.
They already announced her return match for TJPW. Like, there is not a lot of time left for them to use her. And if she only came for these 2 matches, I'm going to be very upset.
I don't understand this company at all. You can hear my thoughts on the women's division on the Dynamite show. Scott, I think we got this done in a little bit quicker than I actually thought we were going to.
We did good.
But yeah, and that's good to me. We a ton of stuff coming up over the next couple of weeks. We've got the 5-star, we've got the Princess Cup, we've got big shows in other aspects of the Joshi world. We're going to be bringing it all to you on the show with the recaps and the reviews and everything. Keep us posted with questions and stuff like that. We love answering questions. Obviously, we ran out of time this week, but we love answering your listener questions. Matt asked a great question. Zohaib did as well. So thank you guys for listening. For Scott, this has been Parker on the 5-Star Joshi Show for the Fight Game Media Podcast Network. Thank you for listening.